What do we have here?
Hey there, I'm Leah, and I'm working today with a documentary crew here at Hollywood to Home to reveal the backstage stories and hard-made lessons of artists behind all of your favorite TV shows, music videos, commercials, and of course, movies that we love. Today, we're at the Universal Costume Department at Universal Studios in Hollywood. You're gonna hear pro fashion design tips that you can implement, as well as the inside scoop on Gabby's Dollhouse. Take it away, Kristen.
The costumes were incredible. I wish you could see the tiny little details, little cat buttons. Those boots were amazing.
Thank you.
I love Kristen. She is just such a lovely person, so down to earth. She was standing next to me and I was talking about the process, how I found the fabrics, and she was listening to me, and she just said, "These costumes are amazing, they Oscar worthy." And I was like, "Kristen, thank you, but I know where is my place," you know.
I felt much more like Vera after doing all those fittings.
That gave me such a satisfaction and such a good feeling that I truly made her feel like Vera. And I remember that moment when she put on the cape in her house, and she was walking on the stairs and she was trying to put herself in the shoes of Vera and how she's gonna portray this character. She's also a villain, and so I definitely wanted to stay away from the obvious choices of the red and black, yellow and black, all the villains we have seen before. So I opted for the burgundy, and just to create a new palette for her. Those colors look really beautiful on her. The fabric, vinyl, it has some connotations, like it's connected to certain people, certain industries, so it's not an easy fabric to sell. And when Ryan suggested let's do vinyl, I was beside myself. I was like, this is fantastic, because Kristen's character Vera transformation in movie I wanted to of course portray through the fabrics I chose. So when Kristen is introduced as Vera, as a villain, she wears clothing which is almost, I would say, restrictive with the hard edges. The material is not soft, it's a stiff material, vinyl. And as she transforms into a childlike adult who starts believing in playing again, the wardrobe transforms from the very hard material into a soft one. So this represents the softening of Vera. Vera is a cat lady. She has a cat who dresses the same as her. She uses the same fabrics, has a style. Even the cat is simultaneously sort of changing with her. This was first time for me, of course, designing clothes for cat. And sustainable approach was to reuse the scraps from the original costumes. Talking to my tailor, she was very scared to make cat costumes. I said, don't worry, it's gonna be fine. So I asked the cat wrangler for her measurements, and so based on the measurements the tailor made patterns and she sewed all the wardrobe for the cat. And this cat, Jonesy, was amazing. Jonesy had the most patience. He was happy when we did fittings. He was happy to try on clothes. He was totally, he looked around very proudly like, do you like this outfit? When we see him on the camera first, Marlena, his name is in the movie, I think it just steals the show.
You are really trying to destroy the universe right now, aren't you?
I would say growing up, I would have to mention my grandparents. They were bespoke tailors, and so when I was watching them working on the pieces, they took such a pride in each piece, what they created, and that truly stuck with me. And I have a huge appreciation for craft people, and they take a pride in what they create, the pieces they create. And so I grew up in Czechoslovakia, and with the limited resources, we literally used up all the scraps which were left from my grandparents' sewing. But I would say growing up, sometimes I feel like the lack of resources and the lack of the available movies gives you maybe more creative freedom because you're starting with a clean slate. When I was invited first time to DreamWorks, I had the first round of approvals. I walked in with my little file of my hand-painted illustrations, and you know, I had to pinch myself when I walked into DreamWorks. I was like, this is amazing. This is a dream come true at DreamWorks. And so there was one cape which they wanted to add, and this ties into sort of the transformation into the animation, which we can talk about later. And the next day, I had approval with DreamWorks executives. And I made probably like 20 illustrations of Cape. So I was up until 3 in the morning, just illustrating, because I was like, this is my chance. This is the moment. And so I came back in the conference room. I laid out my illustrations around this long table, and the executives came down, and the Catchlight producers were there, and they started walking around, led by Margie Kahn, who is the head of DreamWorks, and they just as well were just blown away by the illustrations. They loved everything. There were a couple little tweaks, but like such minor. And then by the end of the walk, Margie comes to me and she said, "Angela, we are lucky to have you." And I was like, "Thank you, but I am the lucky one to be here." So I almost had tears of eyes. It was very wonderful that, you know, coming from this tiny little middle of nowhere town in Slovakia, finding myself at DreamWorks and getting this huge compliment from the head of DreamWorks was something what I will remember for my whole life. For me, the sort of the learning curve was to work with animators. That was very sort of very interesting and very empowering. I had to submit my illustrations to them so they can start the process very early on. I remember them asking me about the belt buckles, the cat head they had to illustrate, and then we have decided to drop one of the changes and just take the cape off. Sort of the looseness of the garment was not desired. So she was then animated in the yoga outfit. The yoga outfit was made out of neoprene, actually. It's a very comfortable fabric, and I think it was easy to animate as well. I truly love the fact that now that I am the head of my department, I have a choice where I go for resources, and I really love giving people work. Tailors, metalsmiths, and especially in my neighborhood. Like, for example, when I was designing the costume, I hired a metalsmith who lives 2 streets away, and he did all the clasps or the belts. And based on my designs, I found a glove maker who is actually from Europe, and she did the gloves, and she lives in Lincoln Heights, which is like a neighborhood next to me. Because I grew up with the appreciation for craft, I think it's so much more better to give them something what they can take the pride in. They can create a piece instead of going to stores with fast fashion and supporting industry which the CEO don't even care. Truly, they just look for profit. And people who put their heart in it, and it certainly shows. You can feel the love in the costumes. We used every single scrap, and that's still sort of my rule of thumb when I design. Because I grew up with the grandparents who were tailors, I exactly buy the fabric I need. I don't buy an inch more. I truly try to trash this planet the least amount possible. It was to the extent that I would knit a sweater, and then a couple years later I would unravel the sweater and re-knit it. So I think subconsciously I was already thinking green in that matter. That's why I opt for building, you know. But I understand not everyone has a building abilities, or not everyone can learn the craft. But if they could possibly hire a tailor, if that's a possibility, you know, and craft people from their communities, from their neighborhoods, that's fantastic. And for just the civilians who are looking for, you know, not to support the fast fashion, I would say vintage, I would say repurposing, I would say, You know, if you can afford, use tailors just for adjustments, just for maybe changing slightly the shape, but I feel like the vintage, and I feel like it's already rooted deeply in the young generation, and I think it's amazing that they have such a green conscious. They are so conscious about what steps they are taking to protect the environment. Always important to look at, we are all different, right? Obviously. And I think one of the important jobs for costume designer is to recognize what you're gonna bring out and then what you're gonna push in the background a little bit. So of course it's the shape of the body, it's the color of your skin, it's the color of your eyes and size of your features. So there are so many nuances which you can play with. It's not just the colors of what director likes or the set. It's about that person, because there are so many shades of blue. There are cold blues, warm blues, there are cold reds, warm reds. You can use any color on anyone, but it just has to be the right shade. As a costume designer, you know, walking on the street, so many times I'm looking at someone and I'm like, oh my God, why are you wearing that color? You know, and you would look so much better. Not that that's the point of being alive, right? Like, I'm not saying that's the there is like brain surgery and other things, right? But it's just like, I'm like, you could look so beautiful, you know, if you just wouldn't put the black towards your face, completely closed. Maybe off the shoulder for women, maybe strapless, because it kills your features, it kills the beauty of the face, it kills it. Because when young actors come to me, I tell them exactly, like, when you're lost in the store and you don't know which shirt to pick, always go by the color of your eyes. That's the simplest step. And then I go further. I said, if your features are smaller, pick smaller pattern. If you have big eyes and larger lips, you know, go for larger patterns. I don't say that, you know, clothing is the most important part of people, but that is that first look you get, and so it enhances their, you know, their self-security, and so people feel better, and if I can make them feel better, why not?